I'm very excited about this particular panel. I'm super curious as to what you're folks are saying. So we have Kleida Martiro, who's a partner at Glasswing Ventures, who does early stage AI and a lot of frontier tech startups. And really, it's pretty well known early stage VC here in the Boston area. And Kent Lucas, who's a general partner at Non Sibi Ventures. He and I went to a couple of prep schools around here, and with the motto of Andover and Exeter is both Non Sibi, so not for self. It's a wonderful thing. Well, it's kind of a weird thing for a venture capitalist, but anyway, and these especially focused on Israeli tech ventures and diverse founders and so forth. And I will tell you, I am super excited to hear about what you folks are seeing in the marketplace, because I think Radina from Glasswing last time we were here, and Chip Hazard were talking about how AI was really hitting two parts of the VC community. One was size of check, and the other was differentiation of the different VCs in terms of what expertise they bring to the talent. So I'll let you go ahead and guide us in terms of where we're going, but if you don't hit on those, I'd love to understand if those trends continue. So, Kleida, why don't we start off?
Happy to kick it off, and thank you for having me. What's happening, especially this now, and the trends change. I'll kick it off with that. The trends are changing and changing very fast. What's happening with at least the seed and pre-seed stages in AI right now is we're having a lot more companies and a lot more VCs coming into investing in seed stage. Yes. So the whole nomenclature of what seed means, I think that's getting reshaped a little bit. At the same time, in parallel, we have how we write the checks as well. I think we write for Glasswing, we're writing larger checks than before.
Interesting.
Slightly larger, because the round sizes are getting larger, the valuations are getting larger, and we need to hit our owner. We're ownership prone in the sense that we need to hit our ownership threshold. Sure. So we're adjusting with that. I'll stay there. I'll stop there, and then we can discuss more.
And let me add to that. So we've done the same thing. We've increased our check sizes, and we've come earlier. We're seed and Series A. We've always said seed and Series A firm, selectively doing pre-seed, and the AI deals that we've done have been in the pre-seed stage. But for us, ownership has become more important for these AI deals. So the add-on is that because we're small and a new firm, we know we're going to get pushed out potentially in the subsequent round by larger VCs. So we're looking at valuations that, we can debate that later, but we know the next round is going to be out of our, it's likely, if we've done our job well and the startup lives up to its expectation, sure, yeah, we're not going to be participating. So we've also had to make sure we're more ownership conscious as well.
Very interesting. Yeah, if you pick them right, it's like capital gains tax. You have good problems.
Yes,
right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what are the? I mean, at our place, we're literally doing the news 5 days a week and so forth. How? And I mean, these are not little risks, right? My co-founder Paul was saying the other night he was out with a group that had raised about $50 million 2 years ago, and the CEO was telling him, hey, the new release of GPT-5 basically ate our company. So how do you think about, assessing these risks and opportunities?
Happy to kick it off.
Yeah, go for it.
For us, we've been very operationalized and strategic about how we look at companies. So we have set our criteria since the beginning of Fund 1, which was in 2018, where we look, is there at the time is there AI? Now is the AI real, and is AI true AI native? Yes. What does it really mean? Can it scale? Can it scale in teams? Can it scale for the enterprise? Can it scale product? So really looking deep at that yes, piece of it. And then how is it going to get embedded into the workflows? How is it going to change behavior? And then looking at the teams, how technical is the team? Where they're coming from, what's the expertise. So the core criteria is there for us, and it hasn't changed as much in how we've actually looked at companies before, because our focus has always been in AI. Yes. Today what's become a little more important or highlighted is there's this question that comes up, is AI still a moat? do we still have, can it have a moat?
Yes.
Is there still defensibility? And I do think there is defensibility because it still comes down to access to data, access to proprietary data. You can train a model with open source or data you can find on libraries, but still it comes down to building a product that serves the enterprise, serves it well, addresses the use case, and has the accuracy for whatever companies are solving for. So the data piece, the how do you really train the AI, the whole feedback loop. I mean, like anything we do, we do something, we break, we fail, we do it again, just so it learns. And the same thing you're teaching the AI if it's a workflow or not. Yeah. And then the embedding to the workflow. So all of these, at least in our view, there's still that's where the mode is in terms of the technical AI. And then all the other criteria that we've always looked for, team, market, competition, dynamics, and so for people,
Yes.
it still remains.
And do you focus on business to consumer, business to business, or either?
B2B, we're always
B2B, all the B2B. And Kent, what do you folks look for?
Yeah, so we have 3 buckets: AI, sustainability / energy transition, and then industrial tech. And if you think of a Venn diagram, we try and ideally find something that's addressing all those solutions, all those buckets. We did our first AI. Our first deal was, our fund's 4 years old. Was an Israeli AI startup, and it was a vertical solution. And since then, we haven't really. Our thesis has been more around ML ops and the kind of framework layer as well as infrastructure. Because we think there's a moat there. If you find that talent, you find that deal, it's more defensible. But what we exhibited first, what we witnessed firsthand in that sector is we had our first exit, but it was at a much lower, it was way below our, we made money, let's put it that way, but not our, we get into why, we're aiming for the home runs. And what's happening, if you're in that space, then you have the foundation players who are going to acquire the business, acquire the researchers and their talent. So we still like that space because there's some neat tech around that. But we started to go back into the vertical AI area. And as we were saying, as Kleida was saying, if you find the right startup team, data moat, you can still make money. And they're less likely, Meta is less likely, or Databricks is less likely to acquire a AI for dry cleaning or AI for fishing, right? So we think we can get to our scaling 100x return if we find the right vertical app.
Gotcha. And are there particular areas that you stay away from that you think are very hyped in the marketplace but don't, when you're looking at it as investors, like, that's not such a great bet?
For us, hardware. So a lot of what AI is coming out with today is you need a lot of strong capital-intensive infrastructure. We don't do that. It doesn't really fit within at least our VC model, which is 10 years, 12 years, you need to return it. It needs time to build. And not from an AI perspective, but just biotech, life sciences that require FDA approval. Even though it has AI, and most of them have AI, it just doesn't fit within our strategy of just VC, our type of VC in general. But those two come to mind right off the bat. Yeah,
so things, some of them have a longer time horizon you might like, and a lot of capital and uncertainty, that kind of thing.
It just our check size, our check size doesn't cut it for them. They're raising 20, 50, $100 million seed rounds. Because they need to build data centers and they need to build that kind of infrastructure, which it's completely different fit from us writing in 2 million, 5 million, whatever round, and get our ownership and then help them grow and scale to the A.
Yes.
Yeah.
We will do, my background's in automotive, which selling hardware into automotive is pretty hard and a very long sales cycle, but we're comfortable as a team. So we will do a deal with hardware. We just did a deal with a advanced material for chips that will basically increase heat dissipation by, as you know, heat is a big problem in the data center infrastructure area. And so they're dissipating heat at a 40, 50% improvement. So And they're not as capital intensive as we're happy with that. But your point is exactly right. In another deal outside of AI, but advanced materials, they've earned and spent 25 million in non-dilutive financing before this round.
Right.
So a lot of that risk, because we will get diluted, but we can look at the capital plan and see,
Sure.
oh, we can still return the fund or make money. But in general, hardware is tricky for a small fund at a seed stage. But so we pick and choose within the space.
Yeah, I was wondering how much for those of you who, I don't know if you heard Ulrike earlier today talking about the open source Chinese models, and those certainly came on much deeper and wider and faster than many of us anticipated. And you look at the Chinese AI strategy, it really is pretty coherent. I mean, and for those of you not following it, if you look at the league tables for the proprietary models, they're primarily dominated by the Americans. If you look at the open source models, completely dominated by the Chinese. And you see a lot of companies like Mercedes-Benz and automotive is starting to build the Quinn models into their cars and so forth. And if I were Mercedes-Benz, I think I would diversify my sources too. Has that affected the ecosystem of what you're doing? Because they're obviously being so aggressive and coming up with great models. And I guess there's a new paper, I think out of UCLA or Berkeley, that shows analytically that the DeepSeek models are, in fact, an order of magnitude less compute intensive for similar inference. For all kinds of reasons. So
yeah, the geopolitical view is just really interesting. And just as you opened up, John, this is such a complex investing environment. We love it, but it's very tricky as we're trying to solve something moving so fast. And geopolitically, if you asked me 4 years ago, I would have said, hey, and let's take autonomous vehicles or let's take quantum. China was going to be in their silo, geofenced, and the U.S. is going to be in their buckets, geofenced, and AI, similarly, and that's all out the window. So I don't have a clear that thesis is wrong, and so I don't have a strong opinion on, but we've invested, or I've done work in Korea and Israel and all over, and it's very interesting how this will play out. I personally advise startups to be very, very, very careful if you're doing anything with the Chinese. There's just enough facts around that, but it's an opportunity that we can't ignore, which is, I think, the point of your question. We have to figure out how to work with them.
Yes.
Yeah. For us, we see it as none of our companies, or we don't invest in foundation models or those who are building. All of the companies that we're investing in are leveraging these solutions.
Yes.
Now it goes into the diligence process of what are you using, how are you using it? And then of course the flip side of that is security. 1/3 of our portfolio invests in security. So we'll look at how are they thinking about security, especially as these products and solutions are being deployed in the enterprise. How will the enterprise actually, whoever you're selling to, you mentioned BMW, how will BMW actually get impacted if you're using a startup that's using a non-American based or even a European based foundation model? There's different guardrails, different security angles. So it comes down to understanding, doing the diligence of does this matter? How much does it matter?
Yes.
And will it matter to the buyer? If yes, then it's tough to scale it, at least in the U.S.
Yes.
Can you be successful in your market, right?
Yeah.
And that's, or do you need to go outside your market, and then it adds a level of complexity.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, it's got to be a lot more volatile. The whole period of Pax Americana, as you said, you could kind of guess, roughly, where things are right now.
Yeah.
Who knows, right? It's very interesting. Hey, one of the things that, and you mentioned this a little bit, Kleida, is the proprietary access to data, and from really two angles. One is, new data streams being created. John Halamka, was talking today about the kind of stuff that Mayo is doing at scale. Obviously, I've been part of some conversations about very interesting new data streams. Like there's an opportunity probably to create the world's biggest proteomics database that on healthy people, over 1 million a year with many samples, very deep. And if you think about how it fits up against an existing business, you could actually fund it from the function it gives for the existing business, but then the information exhaust is tremendously tremendously valuable potentially, would be one example. And that's one dimension. Another related dimension, kind of first cousin to it, is as I talk to my private equity friends, they are sometimes looking at, okay, well, can we do an ancestry.com, right? So I'm collecting, I'm making money on the ancestry part, and then I'm collecting all this genetic data. Is any of that kind of thinking infiltrating into how you're thinking about your investments?
For us, the data is very important as you're trying to build the product. So very, very
Yes.
early stages. So who are you, even at the pre-seed, when we do some pre-seeds as well, and seeds is, how are you building the product? What are you using? How are you training it? Even
Yes.
if you're not training it with actual data, which a lot of enterprises now don't allow, it's what can you extract from the metadata, from the schema to actually train your models. And frankly, there isn't pull and push from the enterprise now that there's been an urgency from the top of the organizations to really push AI into every facet of their org. They're a little bit more inclined to share, but you need to find that hooks into one or two design partners to build that kind of the product and the tech you're building. From there, I think once you have it and you're getting logos, I think there's a trust component that starts getting cemented. So I think that the shift comes to go-to-market and distribution. The data piece is building a good enough product, and now with AI touching everything, it's easy to spin up. I was going to say things. I'm going to call it things, even if it's over a weekend. But what's tricky is to find that data that's durable, that revenue that's durable, that can help you grow the next year or so.
Yeah.
Did I answer the question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah, I would just add, on the front end, it's challenging to get these startups or get the corporate enterprises to let the startup in, and whether their data is siloed or on-prem and how that's working. But once you get those logos, there's that building of trust, right? But early on, I use the analogy, which applies to data and elsewhere, of the elephant dancing with the mouse, right? And the elephant's got so much going on and moving slower and has data, and the startup's trying to get in there and needs to mature and be compliant, and so it's a real challenge, even magnified with AI.
Yep.
But the data piece is important. I think it's a moat, but it's also a hindrance as you're trying to acquire enterprise customers that are so protective of their data.
Yeah, I have a question for you around, there's so many dynamics about, new talent and new deal streams, if you will. Mark Zuckerberg's running around with $100 million checks. I was talking to, and you have folks like Peter Thiel and, saying, you shouldn't go to college. If you have any talent, you shouldn't go to college, kind of thing. And then, and I was talking to an acquaintance of mine who owns an accounting firm in Brazil. And he's been automating the living daylights out of his accounting firm. And I asked him, where do you get your talent? He said, two places. He said, nurses and architects. He said, they're both underpaid, they're both highly technical, and they're usually good with customers. And he would rather teach them the AI and the accounting because, a nurse kind of gets topped out, and most architects, live like church mice. I mean, they're, from, breadcrumb to breadcrumb. What are have the talent dynamics changed any, and the deal dynamics in terms of where you find talent, find deals?
Yeah, I'll give an example. The deal I talked about earlier about the company getting acquired, it was an acqui-hire where we came in at a typical pre-seed valuation, and it's a 20-something, 30-year-old founding team with really great researchers. And the company comes in, I won't say which one, it's public, but one of the players in the space, a middle-level player, offered a nice package. And this is my whole point of why it's tricky for us to earn our return, right? If we're valuing something at 10 and we need to get to 200 to make our money, 200x that is, right? We are, how would you not, it's pretty hard for someone to say, hey, here's $50 million all of a sudden, or here's a $10 million pay package. How do you navigate that? So it's really hard to find. You just have to be careful because that trend,
Yes.
It doesn't have to be Zuckerberg paying 10 million and 100 million, right? But there's enough money out there for this space that it's something we're sensitive to. I'll pause there because it's,
There's definitely a talent war happening.
Yeah.
There's, to your point, there's so much of this larger hyperscalers who are coming and just doing acqui-hires, which sometimes it works, but sometimes in the VC business, we're not really looking for $200, $300 million exits. It's,
Sure.
you're trying to shoot for that unicorn and plus. So that's that. Then you have folks who are going after undergraduates and convincing them to drop out of college, which again, it can work for now, it can seem attractive now, but then what, you can't predict the future. So I still think degrees matter, but that's my opinion. And then you have on the flip side startups who are trying to acquire or to get talent. So if you're looking at data scientists, data engineering, and the cost of that talent is incredibly high. So you're a startup, you're trying to be lean and manage capital and all of that, and you have undergrads asking for $300K for a right out of college job.
Yes.
Like, how do you manage all of that? And but that's the market we're living in right now. So it's definitely a talent war. It's tricky.
And then you have the $100,000 for the H-1B visa on top of it. Right?
Yeah, I will
And
say.
there's people leaving too. So.
Yeah, I will say that AI is an equalizer, right? We have a deal that we're about to do, and I've known him from college, and so you can look at me and see that's not any time in the past 15, 20 years. So I've known him a long time, and he is grinding as hard. He's a 3-time founder, but he hasn't had that, he's not, doesn't have the, he wants to work and has 2 kids to put through high school and college. He's grinding, but he's using AI so effectively,
Yes.
like that, better than almost anyone else. And that edge of like, yeah, you need to hire, you need talent, but
Yes.
there's a great equalizer. We had dinner, another quick example with the founder last night here who let go of, I think, 7 employees worth $1 million just because of AI. Just right, saved $1 million of his burn. Right, so on one hand, the talent. So there's lots of dynamics here. Right, the deep researchers, talent doing this are going to be sought after and it's disrupting the market. But on the other hand, AI is helping solve for some of this.
I can see it now, Kent. You'll be cruising the nursing homes.
Exactly. Exactly.
How about on a geographic basis? I know that as one friend of mine put it, there's more geniuses now available outside the United States than there probably have been in my lifetime. Whether it's Toronto or London or Tel Aviv. Are you finding a need, or it's certainly obviously the French just announced, I forget how big their fund was in terms of early stage capital and research and so forth. So I think the Europeans are stepping up their game. I think the Canadians are, the Israelis certainly are, Singaporeans. Is it causing you to look more geographically broadly?
For us, we invest in U.S. and then we say East Coast corridors, which includes Toronto, Waterloo.
Yep.
We've looked at those. We invested and we've looked at those companies. We don't typically invest outside of the U.S., but I don't know what's happening with folks leaving, coming, visas. It's very tough to predict.
Yep.
From a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I hear a lot. The rental market in this geography, I guess, is down about 40%.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
I know folks that are leaving, foreigners who are leaving the U.S., Harvard, MIT, and going to Canada and going across the pond too. So I know there are losses there.
So our thesis, minor corrections, we invest in the U.S. and Canada and a little bit in Israel. We have not done an Israeli deal since our first one for several reasons. But our thesis is looking for overlooked, underrepresented founders. So we look outside the coast. As a team, we have top relationships in the Valley. But of our 14, 15 deals, all of them, all but one, are outside. So we've done Houston, Atlanta, Minneapolis, Brooklyn, Hoboken. So we're looking outside. So that's where we're finding talent, right? Talent is everywhere, opportunity isn't. So we believe that. Our research and one of our top AI deals is out of College Park, right, and the other out of Rice. So top AI, STEM schools.
Yep.
So we think the market is big enough in the U.S. and Canada. We'd like to do more Canadian deals, but haven't found any yet.
I'd like to turn it, do folks have questions for our panel here? Yes.
I was just wondering how your timeline on expected return or progress on the technical side has changed in light of AI. And there's human things like product market fit, but are you trying to accelerate the development portion, or do you try to impose those standards on the teams you invest in?
Yeah,
yeah.
I think, well, for us, it's a mixed bag. I just know the train is moving so fast, right? The development train as well, and everyone's at different stages of that, that trip. So we prefer those that don't need a lot of compute, that don't need a lot of cost, that have their engineering talent there, and so that a lot of that development is in-house where they're not relying outside. But it's a mixed bag for us.
If I understood the question correctly, it's how do you really invest in, or what are we advising our companies? Are we investing in companies that are heavily?
Sorry, it was unclear. Given that development work can happen so much faster, and there's this perception that like software products are so much more disposable than they used to be, how do you either seek teams that are leveraging AI effectively? I guess maybe it's part of your criteria up front, or how do you, when you look at setting timelines or goals with teams you invest in, how are you, have those accelerated in light of AI, I guess?
So before an investment for us, we'll look at are they staying on top of the research? And it's very tough to stay on top of the research and what's happening out there in the market. How are they thinking? What do they think state of the art is? Why? What's the rationale? How have they tested? So all of these questions, which if you're not aware of what's happening around you, you don't know how to answer. And then post-investment, by default, they should be using whatever is cheaper, leaner, better, provides them accuracy, both from a talent or productivity standpoint. So there's always that. I don't think that there's a push. It's just a common mutual understanding within our portfolio that AI should be used with always with that mindset of there needs to be an accuracy component to it. What are you doing? How are you achieving? Why are you using XYZ, or why are you paying for XYZ?
Thank you. One last question over here. What? Yeah.
I have one.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Russ. I know Kent, we briefly talked about it. So within this, like, obviously the sessions today and tomorrow, we keep talking about adoption as well. I know we are mainly talking about tools, applications, and I'm pretty sure you guys will hear those ideas a lot. But what type of adoption companies would you guys be interested in? That they're only focusing on the adoptions and the small, mid-sized businesses or enterprises or businesses?
We typically look for enterprise adoption. That's our thesis. You go and sell into large enterprises, and that's where the early stage is. It's tough for startups to get into, so that's where we help in and kind of we're the catalyst to provide those intros. We have our network, our advisory group, who are folks that hold these C-exec positions in enterprises where our portfolio companies sell into. So we facilitate that connection, that bridge, that they can get those first few design partners, that access to data, that buy-in, so you can scale quickly. If your time from C to A takes years, or the adoption, we can shrink that to months. But enterprises, to answer your question.
And Kent, we leave the last word to you.
In that regard, yes, enterprise matters. It's really finding that product market fit's really challenging, whether you go after Fortune 500 or you open it up to small, medium-sized SMEs. So it's all over the map as far as depending on your technology, just your solution. Really have to just pound the pavement. It's a numbers game in many ways, right? And once you get the stickiness, right, you can grow and show the logos, and that develops some domain focus or some beachhead market that you can run with.
Well, thank you. I hope you'll join me in thanking our panelists. It is not for the faint of heart to do the work that you're doing in this environment, in this domain at this time. So thank you.
Thank you.